Welcome to Live from Plato's Cave. I am Mario Veen. This is episode 14, Food and Spirituality with Ilanta Sa. If you want to support this podcast, go to patreon.com/live from Plato's Cave. I think this episode will help us to start to look at three aspects of Plato's allegory of the cave. What keeps us in the cave? How do we turn not just our head, but our entire being? And what happens when we return to the cave after having had an experience of what is outside of it? In Plato's allegory, the prisoners are chained in a cave. But what do those chains consist of? What keeps us stuck, or to use a more positive term, what keeps us grounded to this reality? Well, food is definitely one of those things. Whatever else we do, we need to breathe, and we need to eat and drink to stay here for any length of time. But what is our relationship to food? And how can we develop a more conscious relationship with it? In the next stage of the allegory, one of the prisoners stands up and turns around. But Plato is very clear to emphasize that it's not enough to just turn the head, but the whole body needs to be turned. In other words, we cannot think our way out of the cave. We cannot reason or even imagine our way out of it. We have to turn our entire being. And that means not just our mental being, but also our emotional being and our physical being. Again, there's a close relationship with the food that we eat. In episode 8, with Marieke van Vught, we spoke about the wisdom of the body in the context of dance. And in this episode, we will dive deeper into that idea that our body has its own wisdom. The body knows, the body feels, the body remembers. And finally, in the allegory, the prisoner returns to the cave after having been to the service, but they cannot communicate that experience to the others who are in the cave. The words in the cave, and perhaps language as such, is too limited to capture such a profound experience. In episode 6 with Ernst van Alphen, we discussed this issue in a more negative context, the context of trauma. In this episode, our guide discusses positive spiritual experiences. Those are experiences that are real to you, maybe even more real than anything else in your world, but you cannot share them with anyone. And yet you cannot ignore them. So how do you integrate them into your daily life? Our guide today is Ilanta Sa, and she connects all of these three issues. A more conscious relationship with food, working with the wisdom of the body and the wisdom of nature rather than just with our thinking, and integrating spirituality in a down-to-earth life. Ilanta Sa is a beauty and wellness consultant. She's a breath coach and a business owner. She's passionate about sharing the benefits of conscious living and how it affects our physical, emotional, and mental well-being. Ilanta started the first superfood company in Switzerland in 2007. Now she has a natural skincare company called Radiant Beauty. She has been studying and working in the fields of holistic nutrition, detox protocols, superfoods, and supplementation, and in her own life, she has focused on creating a sustainable way of living, natural beauty care, and a plant-based lifestyle. Ilanta is a certified breath coach, and she gives individual food coaching. In her consultations, she works with you to find out which simple steps you can take for a more conscious relationship with food and a diet that supports your lifestyle. Thanks for speaking with me.
Oh, it's a pleasure to be here.
Yeah. What did you eat today?
Actually, I ate something that it's a little bit different from usual. So basically, I listen to whatever the body wants to eat at that given moment. So today, I had my drink in the morning, which is water with a little bit of lemon and a little bit of honey. This is how I wake up. I always drink that. And then I had an apple.
I had an apple too today.
Huh?
I had an apple too.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
And I mean, it's seasonal, or at least there's lots of apples. And then I had porridge for lunch. And this is very unusual. Normally I would have a salad and some protein.
Mm-hmm.
Like, as you know, I'm vegetarian, so I don't eat meat. So it's going to be some protein in like tofu or something like that. But today I didn't have anything at home. It's shopping day today, so I didn't shop. So I had porridge and I ate porridge.
So is porridge like what for me would be like eating fries or something like that? Or
no,
just
it's
because
not
you didn't have
comfort
anything?
food. It's not comfort food, no. My comfort food is still chocolate.
Mm-hmm.
But it was like one of my last addictions, because I have a history, a bit of addiction to food. And I spent 1 year or two without eating any chocolate, any cacao, any chocolate. So the addiction went away, but sometimes I feel like eating it, but it's not an addiction anymore. I don't need it anymore.
Mm-hmm.
I just eat it because I want it, but I can go without it. So no, I don't have comfort foods like that. Actually, it's a bit strange.
Now, what do you mean by addiction? Because we're, of course, thinking about Plato's cave, I thought, they're kind of stuck in the cave.
Mm-hmm.
For me, one of the things that we're stuck is, well, we need oxygen, we need to eat, and we need to drink, and probably some other stuff too. But I think those three are the basics.
Mm-hmm.
So are we addicted to food, or is addiction something else for you?
Food is emotional. It's undeniable. It's not like water that you drink because you need it and there's no emotional attachment to it. But food has an emotional component to it because of childhood, mostly. But it is not an addiction in the way like we see addictions as cigarettes or alcohol or whatever. But whenever there is a situation where you cannot be happy without it, it is an addiction. It's not that food is an addiction, but comfort food is an addiction. That's the way I see it, at least. And the way I see it in myself, I can only speak from experience, of course, yeah, because I'm not a nutritionist nor anything. But I have gone on a long journey to heal or to deal with my relationship with food, that it's not so healthy, let's say.
Mm-hmm.
And it comes from childhood, I believe, because at dinner time or at lunchtime, that's when you can see the dynamics of the family. Not so, you can feel as a child that the parents are not so happy, and many times the family is very dysfunctional or only a little bit dysfunctional, and you're not so happy, you're not so much in harmony as parents, and the children pick that up, and eating becomes a stressful situation, actually.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't know, for me it was like that it was just, I didn't want to eat ever. I just didn't want to eat because there it was, my father and my mother. I mean, they are lovely people, but they have their problems.
Yeah.
And it's not their fault. It's just how it is. And it seems that around food, all these things come up to the surface.
Yeah.
And I think that gets kind of imprinted in us. And we are always searching for some emotional compensation for that. I don't really know how to explain, but there is food that nourishes us, that really nourishes us, and there's food nourishes on a physical level, and then there's food that is more for the emotion, that it's a compensation.
Yeah,
that's all. But I don't know about you, but when I am truly happy and satisfied and fulfilled with my life, I don't reach for comfort food, for emotional food, for the fries or the chocolate or whatever it is, because I'm happy. That's why probably when a person is in love, we don't really eat much, because it's there. There is no need for food as an emotional kind of thing. That's the way I see it.
Yeah. It's so fascinating for me. If food is, once you start to pay attention to it, it's like if that's the lens that you start to look at just basically any situation. Well, if you just walk around in the city, it's so organized around food and rest. I once spent some days with somebody who didn't eat and didn't drink as well. That's another story, but at least when he was with me, he didn't drink and he didn't eat. And he was from the UK, so I wanted to show him around, but I took him to Amsterdam. What do you do? Basically anything that came up. Okay, let's go drink some coffee. Oh no, wait, he doesn't. I mean, it was so hard to figure out to go somewhere where there's no, of course I could have taken him somewhere with food, but once you take that out of the equation, it's so I think you know this, my PhD research was also about gluten intolerance. And I recorded mealtime conversations. So the children couldn't eat gluten, and we found out, the research was about how do they deal with it. And it was almost never explicitly like, oh, you cannot eat this or something, but it was more, they were saying, they were trying to normalize it. Like, oh, I made this especially for you. Or if they ask a question, somebody asked a question to the person with gluten intolerance, if they can have it or not, they would start out saying, are you allowed to have it? But then they corrected themselves. They said, are you allowed to have, do you eat this one? It's so central. And what I really learned from you is you really opened my eyes some decade ago or longer, about the relationship between food and thinking and feeling. Because of course probably people listening to this, we know obesity is a crisis. We know the stuff that we eat generally as a society isn't, it's causing all sorts of troubles. And there's lots of people, of course, they're hungry in the world. They so many people go to bed hungry tonight.
It's very unfortunate. That's really unfortunate.
But the link,
we eat too much. In my understanding, we eat too much in the West, right?
Yeah. Do we eat more than we need?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Again, because it's for the comfort. And this is not a judgment, but look, now actually there's a tendency for the intermittent fasting, isn't it? There is this tendency. I started to, the most important thing with food, in my understanding, is that the food is not for the emotions, and it's not for the mind also. The food is something that the body needs, and that's it. It should be that. It's the body needs the fuel, and we make a huge scenario around food. It is okay that it's also for emotional and connection and social, all of that is fine. But basically, the body needs food. The body needs water. The body needs air.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah.
And then we create all these things around food. Like you said, your friend comes, he doesn't eat. What am I going to do? Where am I going to take him? You could take him to the park. You could take him to the beach. You have wonderful places to take him. But the idea is always to connect around food. And that's not bad, but it's also a little bit too much. There's a little bit too much focus on food. If we think that the food is for the body, and we don't create dogmas around it, and we don't create too much attachment around it, then it's a start. Because it is what it is fuel for our body.
Yeah.
It can be tasty, it can be healthy, it can be good for the planet, all of that. And but it is just food for the body. And the most important thing, there's a lot of talk about food, obviously, and what is good, what is bad, what diet is best. After studying and making so many mistakes, and my experience after all these 20 years of dealing with all of these things, my understanding is that you eat, and after you eat, do you feel good? Do you feel energized? Do you feel calm but energized? Are you at your best? Or if yes, that food is good for you. And then if you feel lethargic or too excited or whatever that you don't like, then the food is not good for you.
Mm-hmm. But for me, it's so difficult to distinguish between what I need and also how I feel, because for example, I drink coffee every day. And if I don't drink coffee for a day, I get a headache.
Mm-hmm.
So then what the message is, you must drink coffee, because if you don't drink coffee, you feel bad.
No, but that's, coffee, even if you didn't know that coffee is not bad for you, because actually some science says that coffee is good for you.
Mm-hmm.
There's science to prove everything, right? We know that. But if you don't eat something and it gives you a headache, it's because there's something wrong. I mean, I think this is easy to understand, or not?
Yeah, I mean, if I take heroin today, then tomorrow my body tells me take heroin.
Yeah, but even I mean, you're going to coffee because, okay, it's most people like coffee and cannot live without coffee. But have you gone long periods of time without coffee, like in a retreat?
Yeah, of course. But I mean, yeah, that's what I'm trying to get at, because it's like my body tells me, but there's different ways of speaking of the body, I guess. I mean, there's like a very childish way of speaking. I need this now. Or I mean, I've been, I quit, I don't know how long ago, but I always have to think about this Woody Allen joke where in some movie he says, oh, I haven't been myself since I quit smoking. It's a very stressful situation. And then the woman asks, how long ago did you quit? He says, well, 20 years ago. But so, yeah, I'm very familiar with, I haven't done any like hard drugs or something like that, but I think I'm very easily, because of that, I don't try it, because I know I'm so easily addicted with smoking, with coffee, with eating sugar, and with everything like that. But then in that moment, so I remember trying to quit smoking, and basically at the end of the day, I would decide to quit smoking. I would throw away my pack of cigarettes and my lighter. And the next day before noon, I would buy a new pack and a new lighter. And everything inside you is screaming like, you need this. And this is like, it's going to fix all your problems and you're going to feel better. And then you buy a pack of cigarettes and you smoke and you feel better for a little bit. Yeah. But I mean, you feel better, but you're also, while you're chained inside of Plato's cave. I mean, addiction, if we speak about Plato's cave, right?
Exactly. Yeah. But you're bringing up a very strong example, which is coffee. I mean, if you really want like to be more in contact with food or getting healthier, I mean, drink coffee, to continue drinking coffee, because it's a very addictive substance. So we are not going to start there. Mm-hmm. If we want to, like sugar, it's another thing. Mm-hmm. I mean, your body will scream, I need this, I want sugar or sugary things. So, and it's difficult, and there's no, I don't think there's solution. I've always been addicted also to many things. I've smoked for 15 years, like, mm-hmm. and I would go and drank a lot of alcohol for 15 years as well. So, the steps, I believe, need to be with easier foods to let go of to start with. If anybody is interested in starting to get more in touch with the body, is eating an apple and saying, oh, what does the body feel good? And then you eat a bowl of rice. You're not really addicted to rice, I suppose. And then you say, okay, No, I'm a bit lethargic. And then the journey begins from there. The coffee is, it's too strong. And of course it's difficult to deal with it. But as you begin to develop a relationship with the food, which I think that's what's missing. We just eat, we look at food as a commodity, something that we just grab, we eat, and let's move on. But it's life, isn't it? If it wouldn't be for the food, it's a life in itself to start with, and it's giving us life, and we have no relationship with it, except for, oh, I need you, I'm going to eat you, and then that's it. But as soon as we start having a relationship with the food, as from life to life, it's a life that it's there, and we are eating life. And just a simple sitting with the food, do I feel good? Okay, so I'll eat more of this. And slowly you will develop a relationship when eventually, even if it's 10 years later, you really don't want the coffee. But if we go and say, no, I cannot eat coffee because it's horrible for me, it's never going to work. It's never going to work, because we're going to feel guilty. If we drink the coffee, we're going to feel that we're missing out on something. If we drink it, if we don't drink it, and then we quit coffee and we go to chocolate, we go from chocolate and then we go to whatever addiction, it's the same. So for me, it's just doing the easiest and the most difficult at the same time, which is paying attention to the body. What is it's that simple.
Yeah.
You're just like, okay, kale and whatever and green vegetable are awesome. Everybody tells you that, but you eat it. Do you feel good? No. Well, don't eat it. Move on, try something else. But you need to sit, and especially for children, this is very important, because children need to develop a relationship with food.
Yeah, to see how they feel when they eat something. Yeah.
And they have an intelligence that we don't. You know, it's pure. They are connected to the body in a way that we are not. We have a lot of ideas. We have a lot of guilt with food and a lot of ideas, but the children know. I don't know if with me, I never digested milk, for example, since birth, but I was fed milk because, for me to be
it's in the
strong
culture.
And yeah, you just have, and the doctors told you that you need for her to grow. I didn't grow much, so it was ridiculous, but I needed to have milk, and every single day I feel like vomiting. But my mother, wanting to do the best that she could, she was giving me milk, but my body knew that it was not good for me. So I think it's very important that parents know that too, that the children relate to the food in a way that it's healthy.
So if I hear you correctly, it's about food is also about your relationship to your body, and
we have forgotten.
Yeah, having a healthy relationship to your body. Yeah.
And it's easier said than done.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, yeah, I know, because first of all, I can say that just knowledge is not enough, because I eat very healthy, but I also eat a lot of bad stuff. So, I mean, bad stuff, I mean, just like stuff with sugar or fat or everything like that, in a way that I'm not happy with it. But I know, I mean, I learned a lot from you, and from, I did some, food, like ways of eating that worked really well. But still, it returns to a certain point where I'm not happy with it. And I think that point is it's not about food, is not about food, if you know what I mean. It's about something else. It's about, for me at least, about like you gave an example earlier. If you feel really good, if you're in love, you don't need to eat much. You eat maybe some fruit or something. If you go, if you eat, it's more like also a celebration, right? You eat something that you can eat anything, but it's like with joy.
Exactly, that's the thing, is joy.
Yeah,
it's a celebration eating. Yeah, true.
So, okay, at this point we could say, okay, this is an individual's problem, right? I mean, if some people have a healthy relationship with food, others don't, and we know about eating disorders and stuff like that, obesity, addictions. But could you just, maybe instead of, because I want to ask you about how you see that, on a more collective level, but maybe it's good if we just get to know you a little bit better first. You were speaking about drinking milk every day. And I think there's, a time when you grow up, you just live with your family. You don't think too much about who made the rules. And at one point you start to discover the world, and that the society you live in is maybe not fitting you or something. So you start to make some of your own choices, go on your own journey. So do you remember any point where you thought like, there's a different way of life possible, or I want to get out of this, or something like that?
Yeah, I left home very early. I mean, very early for Portugal. Yeah, at that time, I left home when I was 15. And because I just understood that I could not be myself. I mean, I was what I thought it was myself. So I left home at 15. But since a very young child, I didn't feel at home, basically. So I always wanted to escape where I was. And I did at 15. And I started to do things by myself, like following what I thought it was good for me, but actually I was not prepared to think for myself. And I think many children and youth also might relate to this, because either we are under the parents' guidance, or we try to figure out things for ourselves, but really we didn't have any education to take good care of ourselves. So I didn't take good care of myself at all.
Then it's just basically more like, I want to get away from this, and anything that's not this is already much better. But you don't have a plan or a developed like vision of where you want to go, right?
Exactly. I just kind of want to get away from this. And that isn't, I mean, it's good, but it's not so good, because I also didn't know, I just made a lot of mistakes because I didn't have that, a stable platform. I didn't have anything. I didn't have any rules in my life.
So when did you feel something that you felt, oh, there's something here. This is something I need to follow. Did that have to do with food already, or was that something else?
No. I mean, I felt like when I was 12 or 13, I was very connected with yoga, actually. At that time in Portugal, it was like, I had a little tiny book of with yoga postures, and I was doing it, and something like shiatsu, which is like a massage, and the plants. I was very, very connected to plants. I was playing with plants and essential oils and natural cosmetics, natural remedies. That for me was my world, and nature, because the garden was quite big, and we would always go to the sea. For me, the connection with nature, both nature, or with my little plants and things, was what I wanted to explore more. But it was not, people didn't think that was a worthwhile thing to explore. So then I didn't feel at home. That's why I didn't feel so much at home. And I left, and I lived in a certain way for 15 years. And then I got sick. My encounters with truth were actually always related to sickness, which is a bit strange, but that's how it's happening. It's not by choice. But I was living so unconsciously that suddenly, like, the body really collapsed, and everything changed. Everything changed completely. And it was actually after a surgery. I had 3 surgeries in a row. And the last surgery, when I woke up, I was actually not awake. I mean, I remember it was a very strange feeling. The doctors were trying to wake me up with this kind of movements to wake me up in my chest. And I was talking to them like, hey, I'm here. And they thought that I was dead. And at that time, that didn't make any sense to me. And then when I woke up again in my room, in the hospital room, that was the first time that I encountered something that made sense to me. And it sounds very esoteric, and for me it was very strange at the time because I was not spiritual in any way, but there was a light, a presence, a something where I felt 100% at home, completely at home. I was completely blissed out, and this was not the after effect of a surgery, because I had other surgeries before and after that. It was always horrible to wake up after a surgery. But at that one, it was incredible. I still remember to this day, and I didn't have any reference point of what that was, but it felt like this is it. This is something that I have never experienced, and I was just there in bliss. And one friend came in the hospital to act, and he said it was not spiritual at all. And he goes like, "Oh, it's like God is here." I'm like, "Oh, you feel it too?" And we were blissed out for some time. And then, our friends came in, and my mother and whatever, and things started to dissipate. But that was always my reference, because it was such a change, a complete change from my reality. And from that moment onwards, then I started everything changed in my life. I stopped drinking and drinking and smoking, and I moved to another town in Portugal. I left all that I knew behind. And my body asked me to go vegetarian. And I'm saying this because nobody told me to do anything.
But that's what I wanted to ask. Did you get in that moment, like a message, do this or do that?
No.
It was just because how you describe it now is just a feeling, and you felt a presence, if I'm correct, and you had this feeling. And how did you think about, okay, I have to stop eating this, or I have to?
No, it was
just
not
happened.
like that.
Yeah,
I was just like, the body started to, I can't eat meat. So it was all very like practical and simple. And I was confused, obviously, like, well, what is? But at that time, and I think it was easier back then, because there was not so much information from outside. Yeah. If it would have been now, I would go online and search, what is this, whatever. But at that time, it was not like that. I mean, it's good how it is now, but somehow at that time was easier. And one step after the other, things just changed, but I didn't have anybody talking to me saying this or that. But then I eventually met my spiritual teacher, and from there we started working on meditation and much related to food as well, because for him the spiritual path is very connected to food. So that's when my food journey began, me realizing that I had some problems related to food, and I was covering up my emotional problems with food, basically, which I had not realized until then. I just thought, okay, I'm addicted to cigarettes and alcohol. Well, okay, that's okay. And I like sugar. Yeah, okay. But that was it. I didn't think any of it. And I thought it was just okay. But then a deeper relationship with food began in that way.
How would you describe that relationship?
Again, first of all, it was the being aware that there was a problem.
Yeah.
And that's the first step, right, for anything. And then for a long time feeling very guilty about it, which is not useful, but it happened. I can't. And then, which I think it's very important, I went on some very long retreats, meditation retreats, which included fasting and juicing, fasting, drinking smoothies, etc., along with meditation and spiritual work. And the experience of not eating, and then the first time that I ate after the fast, is in my body. I mean, it's a memory that I have, that it's much more important than any book that I read about fasting or this or that, because it was an experience of the body. It was such bliss. There was just this connection that I spoke with food before.
Yeah.
I spoke that I felt for the first time there when we began to eat again at the end of the retreat. And it was not only that I was starving, I was actually not so much starving at that point, because the body gets used to eating just small amounts of food.
How long was that? How long did you fast?
It was 40 days.
40 days? Okay.
No, but look, this is not 40 days fasting, not at all. It was, we start with the food, like raw food, and then smoothies, and then juices, and then a few days of just water, and then move on again to juices. It is very well.
Just why is that important that you? I mean, if I want to fast, I told you I drank coffee in the morning and everything like that. Okay, what would happen if I just start fasting now? I don't eat for, I don't know, 3-4 days.
No,
drink water.
Nobody should do that. No.
Why not?
I mean, because first of all, it could be too much of a detox, right?
Yeah.
And then you don't know how to do it, how to deal with it, and it's just too strong for the body. There is no need to push the body in any way, and there is no benefit for it from it. And there are ways. It's always very good. It's the same as like you are in a very hot environment and then you go to a very cold environment. It's just, no, you adapt slowly.
Small steps.
Yeah, small steps. But it is also okay if it's just for one day. If you stop eating now and eat tomorrow again after 24 hours, that's totally fine. There's not a big deal. But if you go on a longer retreat, obviously you have to slowly get into it and coming out of it, because things happen. Especially if you do it on your own, there's a lot of emotions coming up that you might know how to deal with them by yourself. And there's also toxins coming up, and there is no need to go through that by yourself, and there's no benefit to it, because then it doesn't stick. Your body will remember that was a horrible thing that you've done, and you don't want to do it again. But if you do it in the easy way, your body will have the time to get used to it and feel when the body's clean, it feels that bliss, and your body will remember how good you felt during those times. And that's very important. On a biological level, on a physical level, it's the toxins that are too much if you just go on a fast. But also on emotional and spiritual and other levels, it is important that the body is respected, and that we allow it to feel the bliss of being truly healthy. And that can only be achieved with gentleness.
And so why because those toxins are, they're in the body when you start to fast, they're already there, but why don't you feel them? Why does something physical happen that they start to come out? Or why do you start to, I think anybody who fasted, you have the experience that first you get like, headache, maybe tense, maybe it doesn't feel so good in the beginning, maybe. Do you know what happens? Why? Because the stuff is already in your body.
Yeah.
So why don't you feel it?
Because you are very used to it, isn't it?
I mean, if you really think about it, we say that we are healthy and we feel good, but if we think about it, we just got so used to not feeling really good.
Mm-hmm.
When was the last time that you were really, you had a feeling of health and energy and bliss? When I say bliss, is not something woo out there, like a really well-being in your body. That when was the last time?
Yeah.
You know, And we don't know, but we slowly accumulate so many toxins that we just get used to it.
But you don't have, you don't have that reference point, I guess.
Anymore.
I mean,
exactly. Fasting is important.
I have, it's a bit like a parallel. It's not about food, but about, I mean, because I've been doing Tai Chi for a long time now. And there it's kind of the same story, but with tension.
Mm-hmm.
So going in, I thought, well, I'm a pretty relaxed person. But so it has to do with muscle tension, the way you hold your body.
Yep.
Basically, if you see somebody who's been doing Tai Chi for a long time, I was in The Hague in the tram, very busy tram, past the central station, and I saw some Chinese people coming into the tram. Clearly, they just came from Schiphol, from the airport. They had bags and everything like that. And it was very busy. The tram was going fast and around corners and everything. And I knew immediately they're Tai Chi practitioners, because they were just standing with their hands down, very relaxed, like nothing could move them or something like that. And then in the beginning, it's a very mysterious thing, but basically all they're doing is relaxing. And when you're relaxing, all the stuff, the tension that your body is holding is just released, and then your body is just like a how do you say it? It's just a thing. It's just a weight. It's like if you put like if you put a suitcase there, a heavy suitcase, it doesn't fall over too. Your body is much heavier than the suitcase. Why does it fall over if you go around the corner? But if you release all the tension, then so anyway, sorry, I go.
Yeah, but I always felt that about people that practice Tai Chi or something like, there's something about them that they are so, there's something about them. They are there.
And then, so my teacher calls that, he says you have a very high base tension. So doing the practices and everything, but it takes years. Now I start to, the moment I feel even close to how I felt before, for me now it feels very tense. It feels horrible. But at that time I was like just used to having like a stiff shoulder or a pain in my back. Now it's like, if I have a little bit of pain of my back, I'm like, oh, what's wrong? I need to do this, I need to do that. And I really want to fix it, because I can't, I guess what I'm trying to say is that it's also about creating a reference.
It's exactly that. It's creating a reference. Because if you don't have that reference, then it's difficult. So that's why I think fasting, and it is important, because then you can have the experience of how good your body can feel. And there's a lot of, you're talking about tension, there's a lot of tension in the digestive system as well. Not only tension of the muscles, but tension, again, emotional, connected to the nurture that you wanted your parents to give, but it was not so good. And it's always related to food, because the first thing that the baby does, it just drinks the mother's milk. And if the mother is in tension, is tense in some way, physically, emotionally, it passes on to the body, to the baby, obviously. And that is in us. We cannot, it's not the blame to blame the mother or whatever, but it's just what happens. And then the baby creates tension here in the area of the intestines, the digestive system. And the fasting and not eating or paying attention, it just creates some space and creates some relaxation there in the body, for which also breath is very important.
Why is breath important?
Because we breathe here through the diaphragm, which is where the digestive muscles are, and the system there. And it just relaxes those muscles and relaxes that area. I find that one of the most important things, if people cannot do anything else, if I cannot do anything else, I sit 5 minutes before eating and I just breathe. Something simple as like breathing in and breathing out, gently or consciously, and that immediately relaxes the body, and specifically that area. because the diaphragm is here, right, in the stomach.
So is that a meditation? Do you close your eyes or?
Yeah, I close my eyes. I make sure that I sit.
Mm-hmm.
This is not always possible. This is not always going to happen, but it's not only what I want to say is that it's not only about the food that you eat, that it's healthy, but it's how you relate to the food and how relaxed you are when you're eating that food, because you can be eating the healthiest food on the planet, but if you're stressed and tense in the muscles there, you're not going to digest much. And for me, that has been actually the most challenging aspect, because you can change your diet, you can start eating healthy, but if you're not relaxed and you're just eating because it is healthy, I don't think that the body digests a lot of the nutrients that it needs. So, and again, it is an experience. I've experienced this while living in the school of meditation, which is like a type of monastery or ashram. And there, the eating was in silence, and there was some reverence to the food, and you just sit. It doesn't have to be anything special. It's just you sit and you pay attention to the food that you're eating, and you breathe for 1 or 2 minutes before you start ingesting the food. I think that changes everything. Yeah.
So that's quite unusual, I think, because you speak on the one hand, you speak about spiritual, like kind of a spiritual experience that you had and spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
And then connecting that to food. I know there's most religions, I don't know even about Christianity, but most religions have some rules about food, right? About, Muslims don't eat pork, don't drink alcohol, and many different religions have something like this. But I guess if I don't know Christianity, I don't know, but there it's more kind of I'm talking way back, a kind of a contempt for let's say the physical aspect of life. Not even Christianity, but in spirituality in general, right? We have this idea of spirituality as maybe a monk sitting in a cave in the Himalaya and probably not eating, or maybe a little bit bowl of rice or something like that. So we talked about spirituality and food and that connection, right? So it sounds like you made this connection between some more spiritual experience and some food, but maybe first of all, because spirituality is such a broad word, what do you understand by it?
Well, it's difficult for me to explain that, but because I entered into it without even knowing that this was spirituality, right?
Yeah.
And the way I've experienced is that it is a dimension of ourselves, like the physical we can relate to. We know we are physical. We know we have emotions. We know we have thoughts. And then the spiritual is just another part of us. It's nothing woo-woo, just out there and nobody, it's just one part of us that many of us have not explored, but it's part of being human.
Yeah.
So there's the physical dimension, there's the spiritual dimension. And even if we are not spiritual in that like traditional way, we are, because we all know there's something more than the physical. We all have had experiences, and it's that exploration. I don't know anything, but I consider myself a seeker. So it's like I'm curious. What's that dimension? So that's what spirituality means for me, and it is something very grounded.
Yeah.
Also, because of my teacher, Tony Samara, is very grounded. It's just like spirituality is in the everyday. It's here now in our talk. It's everything. It's bringing consciousness to anything that we do. It can mean at certain points going to places, to the mountains, or to a retreat, or this or that, just to connect. And after we have that connection, we bring it to the world. So it's something very tangible, maybe not so tangible, but a dimension that is part of us, and we just have not connected too much to it. And in many cases, it turned actually into religion, which is a completely different thing, in my understanding. It's a completely different thing, because it's just like believing in something outside of us. And that's the opposite, I think, in my understanding of spirituality, because spirituality is looking within. It is inside of us, it's as closest as it can be, to us. That's why it's so difficult. It's like fish in the water. We just don't see it, but it's just part of us. And looking inside rather than searching for the answer outside is, for me, spirituality.
Yeah, we spoke about in earlier episodes about philosophy as if you ask what is a human being or who am I, but you're also the one asking that question.
Yeah.
So that's a very difficult way, and it's so close to you, it's all around you, that you cannot see it. So, well, let's not go into philosophy and spirituality and the difference, but just because I haven't really spoken about it yet on the podcast, I found that's why I also wanted to speak with you, because if people meet you, you're so, down to earth.
Yeah.
And just like kind of there and happy, and you it's more like you're present, so you notice everything. You're not maybe I couldn't say it in a different way, you're not so distracted. You're not. Do you even have a smartphone?
Oh, come on.
you have a smartphone, but how old is it?
No, it's not exactly like that, because you see, okay, let's not get into that, but it's just another addiction. And as I said, I have a problem with some codependence, and I healed the part of the food, and then I went a little bit into the social media.
Okay.
thing. But I'm aware, that's the thing. As long as we are aware, one thing is like, I'm eating chocolate and I just don't even care, or no, I was drinking alcohol, I was just like, whatever. But then you create a certain distance, like, oh, I know that I'm addicted. Okay. And, of course, I don't live up in the mountain, and I am of the world, and I'm just aware.
And you have a business, and
I have a business, and I have a business since 2007, when my first online shop.
Yeah.
It's very grounded, and that it's part of my nature, and it's also part of the teachings of Chinese. Yeah.
And so you say you have a spiritual teacher?
I do.
What does that mean?
Yeah, what does that mean? Somebody, I work with my spiritual teacher very personally, but I'm open to the teachings of others.
Yeah.
And I'm saying this because I just remembered one teacher says that a spiritual teacher or a guru, which is a word that I don't like because it has so many strange connotations to it, but it's like, what do you call those things in the car? A GPS. Because when we are in unknown terrain, like you go to some place and you don't know where you are, a new city, a new country, you like a GPS, it will orientate you. A spiritual teacher is like that, but for the inner world, the spiritual world, is unknown terrain. It's a mystery. It's a mystery to be discovered, and we can get lost endlessly. So a person that has done that before, that has walked that path before, can help us walk our own path. It's nothing to do with them, the teacher. It's not about following a teacher, but if he's a good teacher, you will help us find ourselves, because it is complicated already on the outside if you go to a new country to know the rules. it's much more complicated the inside. So that's what I see Tony Samara as a guide more than a guide and a friend.
Yeah.
For me, it works like that. That is just like I talk to him the same way that I'm talking to you now. And but it is a guide to the inner world that can be very confusing, distracting, overwhelming, and there are many traps on the spiritual path, and that's what it is. It's very unusual I'm a little shy to talk about a spiritual teacher because it can be seen as like something religious or something like that, which is not at all. Not for me.
Yeah.
It's a guide that helps me through the confusion of the inner world.
Yeah.
And again, as you know, also it's very grounded, and for him and for many people, many teachers, food and the body are actually very much part of the spiritual process, because it's like the temple. And hence why food has always been part of my spiritual process, because first of all, it affects directly the body. You cannot like eat sugar and then sit to meditate. Your mind will be all over the place, your emotions will be all over the place. Or if you eat meat and then sit and meditate, it's not going to happen. I mean, you're just going to feel heavy and all of that. So in that way, there's a very strong connection with the meditation and spiritual work and food. That's why the monks and the sadhus and whoever never really ate much. That's one of the reasons, because it interferes a lot with the spiritual process.
Yeah, I remember when I started to meditate a little bit, at one point I stopped drinking, but not because I thought drinking was bad or something
drinking
like that.
Alcohol,
yeah, drinking alcohol. No, I was still drinking coffee and water and stuff like that. But because I started to notice that, I mean, for me, I didn't drink much or anything like that, but the drinking was okay and it was fun with friends and everything.
Mm-hmm.
But I started to feel, I think it was 5 days after, I started to feel something about, I don't know how to describe it, but kind of not hangover, but I knew I feel something because maybe that was like a Thursday, because Sunday I've been drinking a lot. And that really started to bother me about like, why does this, because I was feeling good, why does this come into my experience at this moment? And it was not even about the drinking itself or when I was smoking, about the smoking itself, because at the moment it feels good and you loosen up a little bit and whatever, but it's about the whole thing afterwards. And I guess I started to feel that more and more. And even with meat, it was the same. It was actually on with Tony Samara with the fasting retreat, but I'm even shy to say that because it was 3 days. Not
in
40. In Portugal, and not eat so much for 3 days. I think we drank smoothies or something like that, and I felt really good. And then afterwards you have to start not order pizza, but start with fruit and and I started to really feel, even if for a long time I didn't put salt in my food because it was just so much. But slowly I started to eat fries again, and then
that's everything. When you go again to another retreat and gently the body then remembers.
I mean, in my case I didn't do that, but I noticed after a month I noticed, hey, I haven't been eating any meat. But I really like meat and spare ribs and everything like that. So I started eating meat, and I think it took me like half a year, because I did eat meat, but I felt so bad afterwards. I felt so like heavy.
The body, right?
Yeah.
The body felt, that's the experience that is important.
But
You feel it. Yeah.
I didn't want to start. It was, I mean, now I'm thinking about it more, I know the animal suffering, the effect on climate change, all the health stuff. But back then I really didn't care about that. So I mean, I cared about it, but not enough to actually do something myself.
Yeah.
It was just like, it didn't feel good anymore. And then I thought, okay, I'll just eat fish. But still, at one point I just had to stop. And now it's very strange how then afterwards it starts. If I now see, I mean, for me, it's not even meat, it's like a dead animal.
Yeah.
I see it and I think, why would I want to put that in my body?
Yeah.
But it's not
again, it's the body.
Yeah.
That's the same that happened to me. And I think it's much more sustainable in that way, because if you go into vegetarianism or this or that because you think it's good, eventually you will go back to eating meat.
Yeah.
But if your body, like you said, the wisdom of your body said no. I mean, it was just a gradual, natural process.
Yeah.
Of doing it. Yeah.
So yeah, how do you? I have to ask you now. How do you look at Plato's allegory? How do you read that story?
So I am not like super knowledgeable about it, but when I read it, it reminded me of how the Hinduism sees the illusion, the Maya, right? It's just like you're living in this world where it's confusing to understand with the mind. What is it? Why is it an illusion? Why is it that they are there in the darkness looking at the shadows, and then he comes up and sees the light, right? That's which is the journey of any spiritual journey, is like that. We move away from what we thought it was reality, and slowly we start seeing other things, and then we don't know what reality is, and it's confusing for the longest of times. It's super confusing. And so when I read the story, when I read that, I thought, oh, this is the story of what has been going on in my life and the life of many people, I suppose. And that's it. That's the story for me of finding real truth. What I didn't understand then in the end is that he goes back to the cave and he has seen the light, and when he comes down, he becomes blind. And then he tries to kind of waken up the other people, and then he becomes blind. I don't
because
you need to become blind.
Yeah, because he cannot see in the dark. And I mean, when you
then
go into, I mean, first he comes out and everything is very painful because
exactly.
He's just blinded. I mean, imagine you've lived in a cave for, I don't know, 30 years, and you see sunlight for the first time in your life, but then his eyes get used to the light. But then he goes back, and of course he only sees, his eyes are not used to the dark, and
back to the light.
Yeah, and his former colleagues make fun of him because he cannot recognize the shadows. He cannot predict which shadows come after what shadows. So maybe that's a good, I mean, how, you went on like a retreat, like 40 days. You lived in a meditation school for a while, but you also just, I think you travel a lot, and you live in just cities and everything. So how is that maybe something you recognize, that you come back?
I mean, for sure, I recognize the when you start to see the light, that it's very difficult.
Yeah,
it is a painful process. Maybe not for everybody, but for some of us it is, and that is obvious, and that's why not many people really go into this spiritual journey willingly. I didn't. I needed to have a disease to get into it. And the returning back,
as you say, to the cave, but Sima, it's also not easy. For me, it is not easy because I feel lost. Still feel very lost, and not knowing exactly in which world to live in. I'm pulled back at this moment. I'm pulled back to the darkness of what's not me, and also living much more in the truth of who I am. I'm still like balancing, but after this retreat, the first retreat. So if I may continue the story of
please.
The story. So I went on this first 40-day retreat, which was in Egypt, and it was life-changing. It has to be. I mean, such a thing, right? And then again, my life since then. This was 20 years ago. 20 years ago. My life since then is about what is it about? It's the deepening of the finding. Again, is like the seeking. I don't really know. Sometimes the spiritual path is so confusing, but like it's a back and forth from light and darkness. And I don't like the word light and darkness because it implies that one is good, the other one is bad. But it's not so much that. It's like more what we think we are and what we really are. You know, I'm letting go of what I thought I was. It's sometimes painful. So that's been the journey. And I went on to have another 40-day retreat, this time in Brazil. And at that time I had a vision of leaving my own country, and I left my country. I was 35 years of age. It didn't make much sense to leave the country just because I had a vision, but I left. And then I left, and I've been traveling since then until 2019 when I came back to Switzerland. I've been traveling and living in many different countries just because I think there's this curiosity. I want to know. I want to know what other people are doing. I'm like, Portugal is a wonderful country, but it's very much in their own little world because it's so geographically, away from it all. I didn't know the world. I was fascinated by different cultures, although it was always in Europe. And I wanted to stay there and explore how they lived, things always related to healing and all these kinds of things. And I lived in different places and I didn't even know what I was doing there. But now it starts to make more sense because I was more finding myself through if you go to a different culture, you have to open up to different realities and you slowly start to shed what is not really yours. But, having lived in so many different countries and cultures, was a spiritual journey on its own, although I didn't really understand it at the time. And is this, like you said, like bringing both world of spirituality and the very physical, mundane world together has been my journey. So ever since. And what can I say? And food has always been at the center of it, because you can imagine if you're traveling, it's very easy to fall into addictions and stuff like that because you don't have healthy food at all. Many times if you're traveling and all that, and keeping that center, keeping that focus, keeping that love for myself and for my journey while I'm still traveling and doing all these crazy things, it has been a journey as well. So it's maintaining that equanimity, that center, even in the chaos. That's probably the most important lesson of my life until now. It's the keeping myself centered when everything is just chaotic. And it's been a very difficult journey in terms of health as well. And but I don't know exactly what you want to know about my journey. You can ask me.
What's your favorite place in the world?
Yeah. And there are the places in the world is always connected, for me at least, with some feeling that was like, some feeling of contentment. And that's going to be wherever the retreat in Egypt was, which I don't even know where it was. But the sea there was just like beautiful.
Yeah.
And then there's here in Switzerland, I have a strong connection with Switzerland. It's the wilderness.
Mm-hmm.
If it's wild and, untamed, which is rare nowadays, I feel really much at home. So in the mountains here, in certain mountains where there are not much tourism, I just feel so much at home. It just feels so much at home, but there's not one specific place. I will find it. I will find it because I'm searching. I'm searching for that home. Home because is where the heart is.
You're in Switzerland, right?
I'm in Switzerland,
I don't know if we mentioned this already, but I mean, Switzerland is a beautiful country, of
it
course.
It is a beautiful country. And I'm not in the mountains. I wish I could be, but I'm not at the moment. But I lived in a little house, very small, simple house up in the mountains in Switzerland. It was one of the most important times of my life.
Mm-hmm.
Because the connection with nature was real. It was, you could not avoid it. It was a very deep relationship with the silence of the forest and of the snow. And it is in those moments that I learn most about myself. And so I have not found, and home is where the heart is, where I don't know what that is. Physically, I'm still to find, but there are many different places. Yeah, I love Switzerland for now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I want to ask you, I don't know how to ask it, but yeah, basically just how do you see society? What does it look like to you at this moment? What do you see?
I think we are waking up.
Yeah, but what does that mean?
Massively. No, but let's say like,
because I'm gonna speak in my next conversation, probably it will be released before this, is with someone who speaks with flat earthers. And they're also saying they're waking up because they're realizing that the earth is flat and everything like that.
Cool.
So I have to ask you, what does that mean to you? Like waking up, what does that mean?
I mean, because many of us have gone through a lot of suffering, right? And sometimes we have to be pressured into suffering to search for something else. And most of us. And that's one reason.
Mm-hmm.
And the other reason, which many people I find are always complaining about technology. Technology is taking too much time out of our lives. We are always on the computer, but it's part of the evolution. And it's part of this awakening, in my understanding, of the spiritual awakening, indeed. Because spiritual teachers 2,000 years ago would speak to 10 people. And most of them would not listen. Now, wisdom and consciousness can be spread much faster through the internet. And that is a real thing. And I think that is playing a big, big role in the awakening. I know that it can be seen in many ways. I'm not trying to be positive just for the sake of it. I really see a massive willingness to do better inside ourselves. And although there's a lot of accusation of this, the problem of the societies because of this, and it's always external, many people are looking inside and taking responsibility for all this, what's happening.
Yeah.
And that's the only way. I mean, we're not going to fix anything if we don't fix ourselves, because society is us, is individual plus individual, you and me. So I truly see, and I've been in this for like 20 years or something, I truly see a much, much bigger willingness and a movement of people taking responsibility for their own lives.
Yeah.
And in that way, then it will reflect in the society, is inevitable, And it's people like, and I'm going to make the reference of this person that I truly admire, which is maybe a little controversial, but I truly admire the work that he does, which is Sadhguru. And Sadhguru is a teacher that has become huge, has millions and millions of followers of this spiritual teacher, and is creating a wave of consciousness like never before in the history of humanity, the way I see it. And it's this kind of movement that give me hope. And then the smaller teachers and the people that are doing it in a smaller way, etc. But the consciousness is rising for me. That's, and of course, it's like a bit like detox, like we were talking. When we start detoxing, a lot more rubbish comes to the surface, but it's only to be cleaned eventually. So I think we are, I don't know what people say, but in my understanding is that we are at a very crucial moment that we have to be very clear what we choose, because of course we can go downhill even more. We need to really take responsibility and not only be very spiritual and you know, like meditate at home or whatever people that are inclined to do so. We need to take action in the world, really. And again, Sadhguru is doing an amazing thing that's called Conscious Planet Movement. And I mean, just thinking of it, I have goosebumps everywhere, because this is so much what's needed. We need to take care of ourselves, and we need to take care of the planet as well. There's thousands and hundreds of thousands of people involved in this kind of movement. That gives me hope. That gives me hope.
So then how you speak now, I think that's many people will recognize that, right? If they're thinking about climate change, or if they're thinking about, well, I did the episode with Dominic Petman on distraction and social media, kind of these, technology is involved. Food and technology. Sorry, I try not to get sidetracked. I do that sometimes. So that we do live at like an intersection at this moment. I think that's pretty clear that something needs to happen, something needs to change. We cannot go on the way that we go now. I mean, obviously we can, but it will have consequences, like some countries flooding and, well, things that we see around us all the time already, right?
Yeah. And what is the planet that we're going to give our children? That is very important.
Yeah, and that's what the children are saying is, well, we don't have a planet B, and why? I mean, that's what Greta Thunberg is saying. Why should I go to school if there's, I mean, for what? What's going to be the future? And so I spoke with Peter Lemmens about his own idea, and about Bernard Stiegler, a philosopher, and it's the idea literally that there is no future. We live in a post-truth world. Many of the ideas that we have about where should the world go to, they turn out to be, well, unhealthy ideas, in the sense that there's the idea of capitalism will solve everything, right? If we just leave it to the market, there will be a kind of balance. Or communism, or
something completely new,
an ideology, or something new. But
because we are always looking at the past to try and see the future, and it's not like that. It's something completely new. When the internet came, who thought that this would completely change our lives? And it's something like that. It's going to happen. So you don't know what is going to. We have no idea. We just keep doing it. We just keep going and moving beyond our own limitations. And that will create a force that will create something we don't know. Because we're always trying to extrapolate from the past what will happen in the future. Not going to happen like that, in my understanding.
I'd like to see how you connect. I'll try to. It's a very complex idea, and we'll speak about it more from Bernard Stiegler, and he talks about basically the age that we live in. Entropy is increasing, which means, well, stuff is warming up, right? And basically, it's a situation that we're in now, what we're seeing. And he says the next stage should be neg Anthropocene, and that is basically life. Like when a plant grows, it's like a very complex, unique structure. But the tendency in you know, on a large scale is that things even out. They become like boring and distributed and everything. But if you go to the jungle, there's like this brimming life and everything. It's complex. It's basically, I mean, that's how I understand it. It's kind of, that's what we need more of, and not just, you know, not just forests. We need more forests as well, but also more of this diversity and this.
It's the soil.
Yeah.
It's the soil, and that's why I'm so excited about this Conscious Planet movement. You should have a look. And it's all about the soil, the diversity of the soil. That's, everybody talks about the air, the pollution, this and that, but life is in the soil. And we are made of soil. Food is made of soil. If the soil continues to be less and less nutritious, no matter how healthy we eat, there's no nutrition in the food. So we are very much connected to the soil, to the richness of the soil.
Yeah.
And we are becoming desertified, the planet. And that is very, very important to reverse that. Otherwise, there is nothing that we can do. If there's no nutrients in the soil, we are dead in a few generations or decades. So that's why I'm so excited about this, the movement, the Conscious Planet movement, because first of all, it humbles us that we are nothing more than soil and water and air. You know, we are part of this planet. We are not going to save the planet. We are the soil, air, and water. And it is our responsibility, of course, to take care of it. And it is possible. It is absolutely possible. And it's very much connected to the food. Because no matter how organic and how wonderful it is, if there's no nutrients in the soil, it's useless. It's useless food. And that is happening now.
If you eat a mango, if I go to the supermarket here and I take a mango, I don't know where it comes from.
And look, I mean, I don't know if you have this experience, but I remember 40 years ago, 30 years ago, food tasted wonderful. I mean, the you know, a melon that we had in Portugal and peaches, they tasted so good. I don't know that taste anymore. It's gone.
You know, if I buy a mango from the supermarket, it feels for me more, I'm eating the idea of a mango. Like, because it looks like it feels like it in my mouth or something. It's not. It's like, what I say, maybe the concept of a mango, right? Yeah.
Yeah, but it's very important. It's like, looks like it's not so important, but it's important that we eat locally. And if you can, have your own garden and, you know, these little things, or grow some things in the windowsill, and especially for children, they need to connect with nature. Really very important, because then they don't see it as separate.
And how do you do that if you live in a city, you want to connect to nature? Yeah.
You have parks. And there's a tendency, at least in my country, was like, oh, it is like that now. It's like you go shopping or to this, whatever, you know, on Sundays, you go somewhere indoors. And I think one of the reasons why Switzerland is so healthy, and they are very healthy, it's because they are always outdoors. They cycle like in the Netherlands, but they are, for them, weekends is hiking, and it's always in contact with nature. And children in particular need that connection, so that they know that's not something separate. It's part of them. That is also develops their brain in a very specific way. And I mean, you have the sea there, you have parks. I remember when I was in The Hague, and that happens a lot wherever I go. When I'm upset, when I was distressed or emotional, I would go and smell the roses. There were not many trees where I was, but there were many roses growing in people's gardens and up the houses. And I would go there, and I do that a lot.
Yeah.
I was just, it's a contact with nature that it's direct and it's beautiful and it's very pleasant. It doesn't have to be that we're going on a hike somewhere, but nature is everywhere, and we pay attention. We walk barefoot, you know.
Why is that important?
Because it connects. There's a frequency of the planet. There's a frequency. some people are much better explaining this part, because I'm not very good with engineering and that kinds of things, but there's the frequency of the planet, which is the frequency that we have when people go, the astronauts or that, they miss that energetic connection, isn't it? Like, help me here, I don't know, the electromagnetics of the Earth.
I think if you're, I don't know the science too, but from my own experience, it's like if you have souls, I'm sure there's some we both don't really know about, but I think a lot of this stuff, maybe a lot of the things that you're saying will sound new or strange to people, right? But I think one of the things,
it's not new, Mario, because we've always, let me just interrupt you there, we've always walked barefoot. It's just that we have forgotten so many things that we think it's weird. It's not. We have shoes. Even 2 generations before, people were walking around barefoot. We lost that connection, and it's a reason why there's so much disease as well, because the human body, like all animals, need that connection with the earth. In that way. But continue.
Well, what I wanted to say is that a lot of stuff I find this really difficult to speak about, and that's why I'm so happy to speak with you. But the thing is, just try it, if it's the same with meditation. If you've never meditated before, you can speak about it a lot. What you can also do is every day, just how you just described it, you sit like 5 minutes, just sitting and breathing, and probably your eyes closed. But that's it. You don't need to sit in a special way or anything like that. You try that. Don't try it one time and that's it, but try it for a month. Every day, sit 5 minutes with your eyes closed and see how it feels. And the same is just what we were just speaking about. I did try it myself and I forgot about it. Maybe I'll do it again, but just at least because I have a garden, I'm very lucky with that.
Oh, do you? Oh,
yeah, I do. That's one of the reasons we wanted this house. I looked for a house. I said it must have a garden, because it felt somehow I need to have my own little ground. But then just trying to go into the garden or going up to a park and take off your shoes and stand there and see how it feels. So it's not, what we're talking about is not an ideology or something. I think the way you speak about it is very much, this is how you experienced it. This is how you feel good in life. This is how you make sense of the world around you. And your path is probably very different than from someone else, right? So it might not be that somebody else has the same connection with food, right?
For sure.
But it could also be, even if you don't have that connection, it could be something you try. Be more, what did you say before? Like before you eat an apple, just make friends with the apple first.
just know that it's alive. It's life on its own. It's something.
It's this thing that grows from a tree, and it has this shape. And
what's the supermarket there? It's not there.
Yeah, and it's pretty amazing that that's probably one of the reasons we're not conscious of, because I can pretty much buy or order anything I want.
Exactly.
That's quite different.
To abundance. Too much abundance. There's a really good movie, let me just say, it's called Earthing, and it has all the scientific explanation also for the earthing, but it's just absolutely incredible, and it's free and it's amazing. And
it's another thing. We talked about food, but if you look at the world through this lens of Earth, you start to see, for one, most of this, I know in Switzerland it's a bit different, but in Holland, Holland is level anyway. But most of the streets, everything is level. If you walk in many different countries or in nature, it's never level. So your feet have to adjust to it. Your body gets kind of challenged, even just walking in the forest. It's no wonder.
We don't have to do it to think now, okay, now I have to walk barefoot every day everywhere. No, it's just really do the best you can, and you will see, like you said, we need to experience, otherwise it's just words. They don't mean anything. That's why fasting is important, so that you experience. That's why putting your feet on the ground is, and it's these simple things that will get us through these very chaotic times.
Yeah.
It's not the very phenomenal experiences. It's these everyday little things that we do. We stop and breathe 3 times a day. We just look out the window. You know, we just disconnect with whatever we're doing. We pay attention to our body. We eat, you know, with consciousness, just there with the food. We go and put our feet, we touch a rose. These things make a huge difference in the way we can strengthen ourselves and be centered. At least that's how I see it, how I have experienced. It doesn't have, although I have very extreme, people might say extreme experiences with going like 40-day retreats and stuff like that. The real transformation is in the everyday life, that when I'm stressed, I know that I'm stressed, and then I stop and I breathe. That is when you know, at least for me, that you are changing, that you are truly changing, that you are not caught up in whatever mess is going around you, because you have those little tools, these small tools that are very important. And it's like this that the world will change, I understand.
Do you have any vision of where do you see it going? Like how would you look at the planet? Do we all go back, live in the caves or in the forest, or what?
I don't think so. I see many people being attracted to living in the countryside,
Yeah.
you know, especially in the wilderness of Sweden. I see many people going to the off-grid, and that is great. But if we all did it, then it wouldn't be isolated. People are searching for stillness, for isolation, because they are fed up of the cities. But we cannot just leave the cities. We have created them. We have created all this mess. So it's good that we take care of the cities and make them more, how would you say, like better to live in. So I'm seeing that, well, there will be people doing all sorts of things, but this return to the land that many people are talking about, and Anastasia from Vladimir Megre books also talks about that, this return to the land, it's not about abandoning the cities and whatever life we have now and escaping to the wilderness. It's more about bringing because what we are searching for when we're going to the wilderness is, it's some part of us. Some part of us humans have this wilderness, and we have forgotten them. Okay, I'm going on. But what I mean to say is that the society of the future, the way that I see that it's healthy, it's what they are doing here in Switzerland. Actually, I quite admire them, because everything is a little bit wild. Everything, I mean, there's not much wilderness except for the peaks of the mountains, but they bring nature into their everyday life. You know, I'm here and I see mountains everywhere, and not mountains, but hills, and there's trees, and there's wild gardens, and this nature is everywhere. So we feel comfortable living here. And that's, I think that's the way, in terms of like the structure of society, I think that's how it should be, that we continue, we are billions and billions now, we cannot avoid that, but we need to make it comfortable and wonderful to live wherever we live, not go off grid somewhere and escape.
Yeah.
That's
so
some will do that, but most of us, 95% of the population, did not have the possibilities of going off grid somewhere or whatever.
yeah.
So we need to make it, our homes, the best place to be.
Yeah, so not go somewhere, maybe to explore or experience or do a retreat or something like that, but then you come back and I mean,
apply all those things in your own life, which is the most difficult thing.
There's this movement. I love it when things come together, because if you're not, you don't see yourself as a spiritual person, or you don't connect with this. We talked about the earth, the soil before. A scientific person there's a lot of stuff about why are it's a big problem that the cities are too hot in the summer, because there's all this concrete. So there's also, I think in Holland it's happening a little bit, there's some movement about playgrounds for children, instead of putting concrete on there or putting something, just putting grass, putting earth.
That's what's here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Putting
So I
roofs,
think,
like a garden, roof gardens, they
yeah,
cool the stuff down.
yeah, exactly.
So instead of going off grid to live somewhere, in one of the, usually it's for privileged people as well, right? I mean, you need to have the money, you need to have the space to be able to do that and to travel and to go there.
Yeah. And if we all did, it wouldn't exist anymore, because we would all go there, and then, there will be noise and everything that they are escaping from.
Yeah.
This is not a criticism, and some people will always do, I would love to do that. I'm the first one to say that I would love to go and isolate myself, but it's wherever we are that we can make it into our dream place.
Of your own little sanctuary.
Yeah.
Do you want to end maybe with, from what I've known for you, you don't have really like rules about eating, and people should, if you want to know people with diets, you look in the internet and there's people, you should have this diet, or you should never eat this, but is there still a way that if people want to start exploring that relationship with food, what are some ways to get them started?
Yeah. I think intermittent fasting is important.
And what's that?
Really do. Intermittent fasting is that your window of eating, the time window of eating is shortened. So then instead of eating every 3 or 4 hours, you leave more space between meals.
Mm-hmm.
And especially done at night, like you eat at 6 o'clock at night, 6 or 7. And then you eat only 12 hours later or 14 hours later. So extending the time that you are not eating, because most of the energy that we need to function in the world is going to digestion when you are digesting. So this is a big movement, intermittent fasting nowadays, but it's the way that humans have always eaten. We didn't have food all the time. So it is a natural way for the body to find balance, is to only eat 2 times a day. That is to extend the time in between meals. You can learn a lot on the internet, there's lots of it. But basically, each time that you are a little bit hungry, you don't reach out for food. You wait a little bit, because the body actually functions very well when they are a bit hungry. And this has now a lot of scientific studies behind it, but that's how we always have eaten. So that one is very important. And again, my body naturally started to do that, and many people. And then it's very healing. That's one thing. The other thing is to connect with the food, as I said before.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be a complicated thing. It's just like, okay. Like you said, the concept, there's a mango, you have the concept of a mango. So then you get the mango, you sit. Perhaps the mango is not even very good for your body. Just eat the mango, but probably will not be if you're in the winter, there's snow and you're eating a tropical fruit. Maybe it's not what your body is asking for. So if you sit a little bit with the food, that will eventually, the wisdom of the body will slowly come back. And it's a simple thing to do. So that's another thing. The other thing, I don't know, for me, the most important is really to listen to the body, because understand it is not the mind. Somebody's going to tell you to eat meat. Somebody's going to tell you to eat vegetables. So it's a not endless debate about what's good for you, what's not. But if you give it a little bit of attention, because we have to give attention to what we're eating. Our bodies, it's made of food. We are made of food, so it is important to pay attention to it. So back to the practicals. Intermittent fasting is fundamental. Eating as local as possible, because your body understands what's local to you.
Yeah.
If it's snowing in Holland, eating a coconut might not be ideal, or an avocado that comes from Mexico. And perhaps your body doesn't even like it. It's just so that. And eating food that is alive. I think that's very important, like around 50% of the meal
would be good that it's full of life. So raw food, either in terms of vegetables, a green juice, or fruit, or sprouts. It's not difficult at all. And it's alive. So your body will feel more alive. Because of course, if you eat overcooked food or if it's canned, it's dead. So it's okay to eat that, but start the meal with raw food, with food that it's uncooked.
And are you doing anything? I mean, we talked about before, you've been traveling a lot, but you've also had different businesses and everything. I think that's a whole different story, right?
Yeah.
What are you doing now?
Because I was very sick for the last 7 years, so I was basically not doing much in terms of business.
Yeah.
But the last 2-3 years, I moved. I was in the superfood, healthy food kind of space, and I moved to natural beauty, which might not seem related, but basically what I do is all related to healing. And this healing of the body and of the mind and of everything. And the skin, just like anything else, any other organ, is very, very important in the detox and detoxing and cleaning and the feeling good in the body. That's why I moved to natural skincare. At the same time, I'm continuing to do the consultations with food. And I am now being certified as a breath coach. And why I did this is because I found out that breathing is one of the most important tools that we have to center ourselves and to really bring balance. Balance is the most important word for me at the moment. And it's for free. There's no controversy about it, because with the diets, it's very confusing. There's so much information. And with the breathing, I think we can help other people breathe in a more conscious and healthier way and really see results very fast. So I've been doing breathing exercises myself for the last 20 years. I'm also a yoga teacher, certified, but never really practiced and never really shared this with others. So I decided to be certified and start doing this. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. And I have a lot of interests, and it will evolve as I evolve. But the main topic is always coming from the chaos to a balance inside of us. And there are many tools that can be applied in our daily lives to achieve that balance.
So if people want a more personal advice, they can contact you, and I'll put the links in the description.
Yeah.
So how do you start with somebody if they, if I would book a consultation with you?
Yeah. So with the breathing, we have a program that we meet 4 times. For 40 minutes, and I will breathe with you. I will explain why breathing is so important, and I will take in what's your main concerns, and then I would adapt to you. And after those 4 weeks, you have the tools to do it for yourself, which I think it's very important. That we have the tools. We are not always dependent on other people to tell us what to do. So that is what we do. With food, what I've been doing is like taking one-on-one consultations, but I also wanted to make it into a package that it's 4 times. I speak with you and I give you all the tools that I know. I adapt it to you, and then you're good to go. You have your toolkit, you know how to take care of your body. I don't think it's important that people keep coming back. I find it's more interesting and more fruitful for people if they have the tools for themselves, and then they can practice rather than being dependent always on another person. So that's how I do it at the moment. And the shop is only available in Switzerland. So, the natural skincare is only available in Switzerland. Yeah. It's difficult to ship outside of Switzerland.
And maybe last question for the more intellectual people listening to this. For the reading-minded people, like what kind of okay? So you mentioned already. Earthling is a film.
Earthling, yes.
Earthing. Okay. Anastasia is like a series of books by Vladimir Megra.
Yeah, Vladimir Megra, and I find one very book that really was very important for me was Karma from Sadhguru.
Okay.
And the other is, my teacher, he doesn't write books, but there's one very interesting one that's called Different Yet the Same, Tony Samara. And there's a beautiful person also that has helped me so much. I don't know if you know him, Matias de Stefano. He's now very popular, but he's an Argentinian that now is very popular now. But I've been following his teachings for the last 10 years. He's very connected to Egypt. I think you would like him. And so Matias de Stefano, Sadhguru, Tony Samara, Anastasia, wonderful. Wonderful.
Thank you I'm going to make a very stupid joke. Thank you for all this food for thought.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me, Mario.
Thank you for listening. If you want to further explore your relationship with food, I really recommend booking a consultation with Ilanta. What diet and eating habits are good for us is very personal, and she explores together with you what will work in your situation. You can find her website in the description, and go to livefromplatoscave.com for other episodes and ways to support this podcast. It already helps a lot if you subscribe, share, like, etc. I hope to see you again soon.